There have been some breakthroughs, but mostly frustrations. And the frustrations come from the fact that we operate in a context where the constraints are no longer technology-based. We've had the underlying technologies, the enabling technologies, for close to a decade. I mean, in the case of something like NVIDIA, which is the set-top box-based addressability technology, Group M and WPP invested in those 12 years ago almost, right? So the technologies have been there. What has gotten in the way is that the various components of the industry, the MVPDs have to execute the addressable ads, right? The content owners have to agree to it. And the net problem here is that each have their own interests. The relationship between distribution and content ownership has been fundamentally adversarial for decades. It continues to be today. I mean, the headline this morning was that Viacom and DirecTV finally came to a deal, right? And those relationships are so adversarial that there isn't the trust required to move things forward. Now, vertical integration has been helpful because at companies like Comcast and others, AT&T now, for example, the vertical integration, the ownership is the same, but the business interests remain somewhat siloed in that they operate their own independent P&Ls and are rewarded based on the performance of their P&Ls. And so these things get in the way. And as a consequence, it is still remarkably difficult to plan, to execute, and to steward addressability or advanced advertising, far more so than it should be. And we are still inventory constrained, supply side constrained when it comes to addressable. And we do not have a pool of advertising inventory from the national side. The focus has been the 2 minutes of cable inventory that the MVPDs control, right? And even there has been some internal squabbling between those people who feel that addressability is replacing geo-targeting, and geo-targeting usually accrues to the benefit of businesses like Spotlight, right? And everybody protects their turf. I think, I said this inside the room earlier, when the history books get written, there will be an indictment against our business for allowing our silos to squabble with each other while the duopoly or triopoly ate everybody's lunch.
Give us sort of your global perspective as well, please.
I think it's actually easier to execute outside of the United States because, don't forget, Sky has content and they have distribution, and those functions aren't siloed, right? When you look at Australia, similar situation. The content side and the distribution side are aligned and non-siloed. I think we are going to see some advances outside the US using US-based technology. By the way, AdSmart uses a technology that was developed as an extension of conditional access. The same technology that determines in your set-top box whether you've purchased HBO or Showtime, right? And was developed by an Israeli-British company 12 years ago. Not terribly dissimilar to the NVIDIA technology that's used here. So it's just happening there in a different way, largely because the silos aren't quite as powerful, and in many instances, the content ownership and the distribution control are within the same silo.